and they're prohibiting it as well. Their concurrency and task switching from iOS 4 on the iPhone 3G. So I don't like how Apple does that. It's their prerogative, but I don't agree with it.
Okay. Now, their next thing, you've used Android devices, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Actually, it might be useful if you pull, well, I don't know. Everybody knows what the iPhone does. They are complaining about the fact that most Android devices, and by the way, this is something that's changed, they say you only have 3 screens.
3 screens? Huh?
Yeah, like if you pull an Android device up in the desktop, you only have, so you're on an Evo, so I think you have 5. But on Android devices, the number of, the number of desktops you have is limited by a sign, and you don't get to change that. So, okay, so yeah, you have 5. I have...
Well, 7, actually.
You have 7. Yeah, no, that's the thing. You have your main center screen, and then they add a screen to the left or right, or they add 2 to the left or right, or 3 to the left or right. They just keep adding screens. The more powerful these devices get, the more they add. Initially, they only had 3. This person was on the European version of a Droid, so they only had 3. The Nexus one has 5. Your Evo has 7. They keep adding on. What they're complaining about is they're saying, I can have more on the site. Basically, their logic was you can only have 12 apps per screen, therefore, only 16 apps per screen, assuming no widgets, therefore you're limited to 48 apps. This is one of the ways I think the Android UI is actually ahead of the iOS UI, in that I have a desktop with widgets and shortcuts, and I have the app thing which they're complaining about, which I'm told Apple's will only allow you to have 7 screens, and Androids will allow you to just keep growing however many apps you install on the device.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you can go through. Oh my goodness. Go through.
If you go ahead.
What you're talking about is that you just keep scrolling your apps. I mean, for eternity.
Yeah, no, but what they're saying is that because on the iPhone, it's that left-right screen where all that is, and that's the only screen on the iPhone.
That's correct. Yeah, there's no widget. There's no widgets here. Yeah, you have to swipe it.
Yeah. Right, and it's endlessly left and right, and yada yada and so forth. I think having the 2 screens, the desktop and the app list, is infinitely more useful. Because then the ones that live on my desktop are the ones I use all the time, and apps I use every once in a while, I either use the search or the list to launch. The other thing they're getting into, because they were saying, oh, well, I can only have blah many. Since day one, Android has had folders. Apple now has folders with iOS 4, but I think they've implemented it wrong. They say, we weren't the first, but we're the last. And the reason I say that is because, as I understand it, on iOS, you're allowed to have up to, 12 in a folder, and then you can't add any more? Like, you have to create a second folder?
Yeah, I don't quote me on those because I don't know the actual limitations, but I know there is a limit.
Yeah, well, it's like on Android, there is no limit. The folders can become another just big long scroll list, like the big app scroll list. So if you have like 40 games, you can throw them all in the games folder on your desktop.
Okay.
And that's one of those things. It's like, why did Apple limit the folders? Well, it's one of those things. I feel like they came up to. It's like they came within sight of the line, but they didn't even quite make it up to it. Do you agree with that? Is there a reason for that? The other thing somebody was telling me, again, I don't have an iOS device to verify this, but when you make these folders, if you redo the arrangement of your icons in that big desktop / panel list thing, it undoes the folder sorts.
I haven't tried that. So
are you willing to try it to screw up all those sorts to see if it does it?
Okay.
You got real soft for a minute. I can't hear you. Is your mic like muted or something?
No.
You've like gotten really quiet.
idea.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, you just got better there. I don't know what happened. Maybe when you got closer to the thing, it like did some auto canceling. Now, it's what I'm told. Like, there's a way to rearrange the order of your icons in that panel
Correct.
thing, like an auto rearrange.
Yep.
Okay, I'm told when you do that, it undoes the folder sorts.
Okay, so if I'm to do that, utilities here is a where's utilities? Utilities is right here, and that's a folder.
Right.
So I'll see how it shows the applications here for the folder. Now they're jiggling. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to move folders up here. Now it's up here, and I'll freeze because you have to. When you put it in the mode to move it around, they all jiggle, so you got to get it out of the jiggling. But here, I'll put it on the folder, and there's the folder. It did not lose the folder.
Well, no, I don't mean like when you're ordering it manually. It's what somebody was complaining about. Again, I didn't even know iOS had this feature.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like there's a way to change how they're ordered, whether it's date added or alphabetically or yada yada and so forth. Like the order in which things are displayed in that big ever-growing Ouija board of apps list.
Okay.
And I'm told if you use that feature, it gets rid of the folders.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to use that feature.
Okay.
My phone. So,
okay. It's like we won't test that to see if it does that, and I'm not going to confirm until I actually see a phone do that.
Let me look it up to see how you do it. So what is it? Sorting apps?
Yeah, like the order in which they're sorted. Like by default, I think it's the order you add them, but you can make it alphabetically or something or whatever to make that list more ordersome.
Let's see. Alphabetical selection could be challenging for some, but test for help. This one doesn't really have much on it. Well, I'll you go on, and I'll just keep looking to see how this is done.
Okay. But if that is true, that's really a design flaw. The next one isn't even an issue. It's just outright lie. They complain about the ability to install apps on the SD card, which is something you can do with Android now. You can swap around. You can't do it on all Android devices, but it's one of those things that is being pushed out as we speak. We've pretty much covered the fragmentation, and we've covered that. It's one of those things I think Apple and fanboys pick on, and in some ways, like you say, it is a strength. It depends what you're looking for in the device.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And the same thing with they complain about stuff crashing, and I'm like,
I've had crashes on my iPhone 3G, and I'm sorry.
Well, that's the thing. It's like all these devices do crash, and Android. It's like I like the fact that Android pops up that wait or force close when I overload the phone, because and you know what, Grandma's never going to do that, because Grandma's not going to be running that many things simultaneously. But when I try and do the number of things on a G1 that I really need a Nexus 1 for, I expect the phone to push back. I expect it to go, I surrender! I need more power, Captain! Because it can't do it! I expect it to. It's just... it's like, if you're going to complain... And I think that's the real reason Apple's dragging their feet so much when it comes to multitasking. Is that Apple is deathly afraid of having an equivalent of that. And if they allow true multitasking, it's inevitable. Because power users will get in there and overload the device and push it to its limits.
Well, it's wrong to use true multitasking, because now all three
that's true. They all do some form of pseudo, but there's levels of multitasking, and Apple doesn't go to that level.
They all truly multitask, save state, and that's the current.
Your mic's gotten really low again.